अस्सलाम वालेकुम फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू वेलो जी बात। कैसे हैं आप सब लोग? आप सब लोग बिल्कुल ठीक होंगे। सो इस वीडियो में हम लोग इंग्लिश के क्विज टू की तैयारी करेंगे। इसका फर्स्ट स्टेप है, इसका सिलेबस कंप्लीट करेंगे। 3 चैप्टर्स उसके 11 से लेकर 14 तक। ठीक है, 11 चैप्टर्स हमने किए हुए हैं, 12, 13, 14 हमने करने हैं। ठीक है, फिर इसके बाद रीडिंग भी मैं इन्हीं की करूँगी। ठीक है, और चलें जी करते हैं। चैप्टर नंबर 11 से 12 से स्टार्ट करेंगे। सबसे पहले वीडियो सुन लेते हैं।
How are you doing these days? What are you thinking about business communication? How have you found this subject? Interesting or difficult? Let's see what happens. If you recall, we have done 7 C's. We've seen that clarity is how can we keep clarity in our communication? We've seen that we need to do something extra to keep this quality. We've seen what courtesy is. So now you know that courtesy doesn't mean that you are simply inserting some phrases like thank you and so on. It's just the tone of the letter that is courteous. You see what consideration is. Putting due attitude into your communication is showing due attitude. Similarly, we've seen that what correctness principle is and how can we eliminate different types of mistakes in our communications. So we've gone through all these principles. We have seen that how can we make good letters, good reports, good memos. The memos, the reports, the letters, which are reader oriented, which are written with the reader in mind. So let's do some practice about the things that we have done. 7 C's. So if you find now anything that is written, the complex word, lacking due attitude, having no clarity, having a lot of grammatical mistakes, so we want to see whether you can find any mistake in it or not. If you can, it means that you have learned something from this, and this is what we are here for, both you and me. So if you find such a sentence, the conference call will afford us an opportunity to interrogate the numerous remuneration proposals and consummate the rumors. So if you find such a sentence, what is your opinion? Now, the very first thing about this is that it has a lot of complex words or phrases, and they need to be replaced with simple words, with crispy words, words that communicate, words that bring clarity into this idea which is given in these sentences. So let's see how can we do it. A conference call will afford us an opportunity. So will afford us an opportunity can be replaced with a very simple word. We can simply say allow us. So it goes like this: a conference call will afford us to interrogate. Interrogate is a high frequency word. It's a formal word. It can be replaced with a very easy word which is understandable to each one of us. What's that? What comes into your mind? Yes, ask. So we can make it to ask instead of interrogate. To ask. Like the numerous. Numerous, what comes to your mind? With which word you're going to replace it? Yes, many. So it becomes ask the many. So we replace numerous with many. Remuneration. Remuneration is a high frequency word, it's a formal word. Again, difficult to be understood by a lot of people. So if we use a very simple word instead of this, we can achieve clarity, simplicity. So just use instead of remuneration, payment. So you see that payment, it's very understandable. I'm sure that all of us do understand it. So it becomes the many payment proposal and consummate the rumors. Consummate again is a very high frequency word. What is its alternative? How can you replace it? Which word you will replace? Consummate. Yes, it can be complete, it can be finished, it can be end. So pick up. In this context, we can pick up either and or finish. So we say finish. So if we now look at this, we will find that after this replacement, this becomes very easy, very understandable. It will be clear. You know, the clarity give force to your sentences, and you get your message across to your listener, to your reader. So that's why we emphasize on this, like that always do very simple words or phrases which are understandable to each one of us. People know that they are conversational, as if we are talking to each other. So that's why we say that to achieve clarity, we must use simple words, conversational words. Okay. You've seen just now that by replacing these complex words with simple words, we have achieved clarity, and this clarity is favored. This is the desired quality of any communication. Let's have another sentence. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for arranging to send me a computer that is exactly identical to one in my office. This letter is to acknowledge receipt of and thank you for your check number so and so in the amount of fees so and so. So if you look at this, don't you feel that a lot of words have been added into it? Simply the writer wants to thank you, and he doesn't want anything else, but he has simply used a lot of words. So instead of saying, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for arranging, you can simply say, I thank you. You can simply say, I thank you. And instead of saying exactly identical, again, you are using two words which are repeating one another. So instead of saying exactly identical, you can simply convey identical. Similarly, this letter is to acknowledge receipt of and thank you. Acknowledge receipt of and thank you can again be replaced with thank you in the amount of for. You can use it. So just bringing some very simple word, you can achieve the quality of conciseness. And conciseness is a very desirable quality in communicating. Whenever you are communicating, all these 7 C's should be right before you. You must read your communication to think whether there is clarity, there is conciseness, there is consideration, completeness, correctness, and so on. Let's have another example. We have 30 reservations at the present writing, so I'm taking the liberty of sending you an update list. There are words which can be replaced with simple words. Instead of saying at the present writing, you can replace it with just one word, which is simple, understandable, and brings your message across. And that is now. So you'll save word as well. You're going to see that a lot of time we use more words than they are required or needed, and this affects the overall cost of communication. So instead of saying at the present writing, if you replace it with we have 30 reservation now, the sentence is very precise, shorter. Similarly, so I'm taking the liberty of sending you. I am taking the liberty of sending you. Can be replaced with so I'm sending you to two words, and meaning is conveyed. So this sentence can be conveyed into we have 30 reservation now, so I'm sending you an update list. Just a simple sentence, very understandable sentence, concise, clear, complete as well. Yeah, complete as well. So let's have another example. Between you and I, he has a long ways to go to be an estate agent. Regardless of the person which you select, I'm real pleased. So if you have this type of a sentence, you will certainly find that the got a lot of mistake in it. It's violated the preference principle, as well as other principles. So if you have to do it between you and I, what's wrong with it? Which grammatical principle is being violated? The meaning of a preposition. And after a preposition, we have pronouns in this sentence. And which case of pronouns is to be used? How many cases are there? Subjective, adjective, possessive, and one else. Let's do it, please. So what's the problem with it? Which case do we require? Between is a preposition, and after preposition, we need an objective case of both noun and pronoun. So far as you is concerned, it's correct because it can be either subjective or adjective. But what about I? Which case is this? Subjective or objective? Subjective. No. Yes. I is a subjective pronoun. But what is required here? We require an objective case. And objective case of this pronoun, first person pronoun is me. So it should go like this. Between you and me, she has a long ways. So what about this one? A long ways. You know that this noun phrase, a long ways, is one article, an indefinite article. So this indefinite article shows that we need to have a singular noun. So we have the noun of this phrase got to be a singular one. So we can't have a plural one. So it should go like this: a long way. Between you and me, she has a long way if we go to be an estate agent. But next, irregardless. What's wrong with this? Irregardless. This is already a negative word. Negative word means that it gives a meaning of negation in it. Regardless. So you can't have two here because this prefix also gives a meaning of. So you can't have double negative in it. And beside this word actually is regardless. There is no such word. It is irregardless. So it should go like this: regardless of the person which. Again we have person which. What's wrong with it? Which is a relative pronoun. Relative. Oh yes. To write good English, you also need to be familiar with all these things. Unless you won't be able. So what's wrong with it? Person which. Yeah, you're right. Person who. As relative pronoun we use which for things and who for persons. And whenever I don't want to discuss this rule in detail because that's not just to give you an idea. Whenever you are in problem that you have to use which for who. Pick up another word. What's that? That. So you can go like person that, but here as we are doing it and we know we can use who instead of which. So it should go like regardless of the person who you select. Here we can have another grammatical problem that I don't want to discuss that it could be who or whom because that's the topic. So the descriptive way is quite correct. Who you select? I'm real pleased. What's the problem with this? Real pleased. Pleased is participle and a verb used as an adjective. Right? So real is used as an adverb. But we know that an adverb always qualifies an adjective. Can't we use real as an adjective? But in some informal way we also use real as an adverb. But here we must know that we don't go to that in directness or anything else, or conciseness or so. And we also notice that all these principles overlap. I mean, sometimes we can say that it is violating one this clarity as well as completeness, as we have seen while we were discussing all these principles. So you must be very careful when you are talking about these forms of communication, that you must keep these principles before your eyes, that your communication needs to be clear, needs to be concise, needs to have consideration and intention. We also, among these discussing these principles, we also discuss formal language and informal language. So I want to show one more example regarding these principles. I feel that you'll be bored or something, because this is what you are here for. You yourself have opted for this, and you want to learn what the subject is. This subject is very interesting, but the only thing that is needed is that you should show interest. So let's have an example in which we can have a formal as well as an informal piece of language. This letter begins with hi, dear Mr. Imran. So which of the two is formal and which of the two is informal? Obviously, hi is very informal, and dear Mr. Imran, this is less formal. So it depends on your relationship with the receiver of your message, that which of you want to choose. It can be high in very informal situations, it can be high, but in less formal situations, it can be dear Mr. Right? But still, it has some level of formality in it. That's it. Right? So let's read the further. Thank you for your recent letter. So it is formal. Thank you. Obviously, the second one. We were happy, pleased. Which one? Which is more formal. Oh, that's fine. Yes, pleased to hear that you are interested in marketing our range of building garments. But however, which of the two? The formal one is but however. Yes, it's the second one. However. So however, before we make any firm decision, make up our mind. So which of the two? Firm decision or make up our mind? The formal is firm decision. We would be grateful if you would provide us with or give us further information. Provide us with or give us info. Easier to understand. Information concerning about the organization of your firm. Concerning is again formal compared to about. It is easier to understand. It currently covers the number of retail outlets and your market share. You would have to get us, we would expect a minimum turnover. So which is the formal. Second one. Turnover of turnover before being in a position to, or we could offer you and details. The second one is formal. We want to get, we would wish to achieve. The second one. Our market share of at least 10% in the first 2 years. Anyway, what this said, which of the two is formal? This again second one. If you feel your firm is able to meet these targets, it would be nice. It would be useful for you. Again, the second one is formal. An appointment to have a chat about discuss the project. Again, the second one is formal. Then a bit more detail further. I'll be in England from 5 to 12 May and suggest we have a get together. So which one is formal? The first one is, if this is convenient or okay. Again, here we have the first one as formal. Please confirm with my secretary if this is all right, satisfactory. Again, second one is formal. I look forward to hearing from you in the near future. I hope to get a letter from you soon. So which of the two is formal? Obviously, the second one is informal and the first one is formal. So and yours sincerely, all the best. Again, in salutation, we have two choices, to pick formal and informal. So you see that how formal letter is written and how an informal letter is written. And this level of formality is being discussed in the 7 series. We learn a lot from 7 series from these principles of communication. So I'm sure that these few examples as well as detailed discussion about principle of communication must have given you an idea that you need this principle to bring clarity, conciseness, consideration, and other C qualities into your community. Right? So with this, I finish this topic here, and I hope that you must have learned something from this discussion, this report exercises, and there will be a lot more in the form of open material that we will be provided with. So from this, we switch over to our next topic. Our next topic is again very interesting. Tell me one thing. When you think of any foreign country, what do you want to know? You want to know about the land. You want to know about the climate. You want to know about the language. You want to know about the lifestyle of the people. You want to know about the religion of the people. You want to know the attitudes, behavior of the people. And you want to know a lot more about that country. Why do you want to know? Don't you have all these things in your country? If you want to know all these things about any other country, it means that there are some differences between your country and that country. Maybe sometimes you feel that there are very few differences, and sometimes you feel that these differences are far apart, that you belong to two distinct philosophies of life. Though it's there, you are a human being, and any person from that country is also a human being, and you share some basic characteristics. You have two arms, two legs, one face, all the body. These physical characteristics are the same. You wear some dress, they wear some dress. You will live in some house, some apartment. They live in some house, some apartment. You use some language, they use some language. You have certain ideas about life. They have certain ideas about life. But isn't there something which, despite your physical sameness, make you different, make us different? For example, taking our own country, we have 4 provinces, and if you are given a picture, if you are shown a picture belonging to any province, or first question that to which province this picture belongs to, you want to be able to pinpoint that this picture, the person in the picture belongs to the Sindh, the Punjab, the NWR, or Balochistan. That's the one. This is, are you going to make a distinction? So that the person in the picture is concerned, he shares the same physical characteristic as what the Pakistani has. What makes him different, or what makes her different? The way the person is, that's not. Isn't it? To be a person, you all know that person belonging to Punjab, the representative person of Punjab wears a certain type of dress. The representative person of the Sindh wears a certain type of dress. And similar is the case with NWR and Balochistan. Besides this, let's see something interesting. What do you see when you find a letter in which the second name is what first? Similarly, what is your reaction when you have a letter and under the very situation you are sincerely, you have two signatures instead of one? Have you ever thought of? Similarly, in our convention, when we are writing dates, normally the day comes first, then the month, and the year. But what happens when you find such a letter in which the month comes first, then the day, then the year? Sometimes you may find letters or some correspondence in which the letter is finished without any conclusion. You may also find some letter in which there are a lot of grammatical mistakes. So these problems make us understand differences that are found among people, that are found among different countries, and that are found in different cultures. So our topic is intercultural communication. So all the examples that I've just given belong to this aspect of communication. That maybe in any country, letters are signed by two people. Maybe in any country, it is intentionally no ending is given to any letter. And also this is possible that nobody bothers about any grammatical mistake in a letter. This is all done intentionally. And this is due to convention of people or the culture that certain things are dealt with in a certain manner. So we need to understand this culture. But before we go into discussion about culture, we also need to understand a few other terms. Globalization is a buzzword. I mean, a lot of people use this word. You have this word everywhere you go. A lot of subjects use this word to deal with different aspects, different subjects. But actually, what does it mean in business communication? We say that globalization means that for a company to survive, it must establish market not only in its own country, but also in many foreign countries. So globalization means that if a company wants to survive in this cutthroat competition, it needs to work not only in its own country, but also in foreign countries. So it needs an interaction with its own people as well as people across the globe. So in this situation, it's very important that people of the organization should be able to understand these differences, the differences which are found between two countries, among different countries. We are living on this globe. We are, as it is said, sharing certain physical characteristics. We are all human beings. But despite this fact, we are very different from each other on certain basis. For example, we use different languages. We are dressed up different. We have certain norms, certain values. Values of one nation or one group of people are different from the values of another. Maybe one value is very good in your culture, but isn't as good in another culture, not regarded as good in that other culture. So in this situation, this is very important that we must understand that what are these differences which form culture, which form different groups, which forms different countries. Because if we have to survive in this era, and we have to interact with people belonging to different countries, other countries, we need to understand these people. We need to know that what are their likes and what are their dislikes, so that we could better be able to communicate. So in this regard, we need to know actually the background of culture. We also need to know what are the national values, and we also need to know what are the individual values, so that we could have a better idea about these things, about culture, what culture is, etc. So let's begin with it. Culture refers to the behavioral characteristics typical of a group. So culture refers to the behavioral characteristics typical of a group. I mean, there are a lot of other definitions of culture. I mean, in every book on communication, you'll find that they have given certain numbers, more than 150 and so and so. And there are other say that this focal point represents some common characteristics of human beings, physical characteristics, behavioral characteristics, which distinct man from animal. I mean, the way we talk, the way we walk, etc. etc. So all people of the world share some common characteristics. But over these common characteristics, we have other characteristics. So if each petal represents to a country, you can see that some of the petal share characteristics with other. It means that one country shares some characteristics with another country. So we have sometimes major overlap, sometimes we have little overlap. For example, there may be two countries which have same language, same religion, but they have different other aspects. So we need to understand when we are studying culture that how it happens. How it happens. When countries share some common characteristics and when they have different characteristics from each other. This is very important that we should have an idea of these aspects. Learning these differences will help us interacting in a better way with the people of that culture. For example, we have to interact in our business situation with people of other countries. So if we know a lot about them, for example, if we know that what's their culture, what's their religion, what language do they speak, what are their how they are dressed up, what type of transportation is available there, what is their economic, what is their political system. So we can easily form a picture to interact with those people. So if we know that a person of a certain culture writes very long reports, so we won't be irritated when we find a report. Similarly, if we know that people of a certain country are very slow in decision making, it won't bother us when we are dealing with those people. If you know that in a certain culture, no decision making is made or no statement is made unless some senior member of the organization speaks about that matter. So it won't surprise us. So this is very important that we must have a knowledge of the background of different cultures around us. As we have just said that it is very important in this globalization situation that we should work or we should have business, we should have our companies, we should have interaction with other countries. And to interact with other countries, this is important that we should know the culture of that country. Nowadays, especially the multinational, are very concerned about these cultural differences because experience has taught them that these cultural differences can sometimes impede the progress of their business. And knowing them will help them, aid them to do their business in different countries. So nowadays what happens is that whenever a person is to be sent to any foreign country, he is trained in the language of that country, he is made aware with the different aspect of the culture. He is given a complete background of the country. So that whenever he is interacting with that culture, he must be well versed with it. So knowing the background of the culture is very important. We must know that a person, the concept of time, the concept of place is different in different culture, different countries, and every country goes with its own invention. So after having known this, that background to any culture is very important, we discuss some cultural variable in the level of nationality, or we can say national variable. So what are these different aspects which form a national culture? Education, regulation, economics, politics, social norms, language. So these are different aspects of a culture which form natural variables. When sender and receiver interact, they are not influenced by their internal and external stimuli. They are also influenced by these cultural differences because we see that every individual has its own cultural values. So he has his own concept about other aspects. He uses a different language. He has a different level of education. He has a certain set of norms. The rules and regulation of the country makes him a different person. So with all these things in background, a person is interacting, and all these things influence his communication. So today we finish our lecture here, and we will discuss national cultural variables in the next lecture. But I want you to know that culture is very important when we are interacting with the people of other cultures. And nowadays, in the workplace, it's very important that we must know different cultures, because organizations are not limited to their own country. They are living in a very competitive world, and to live on, they have to compete with others or other organizations belonging to other countries. And in this way, they interact with people coming from other cultures. If they want to be successful, they must know that what are the
areas of business, military cooperation, science education, mass media, development there is a but also because of immigration brought about by labor shortage or political conflicts. In all these contexts, there is communication which needs to be as constructive as possible without misunderstandings and breakdowns. It is our belief that research on the nature of linguistic and cultural similarities and differences here can play a positive and constructive role. ठीक है, हम चलते हैं आगे. इंटरकल्चरल कम्युनिकेशन, द कंट्री, लैंड एंड क्लाइमेट, द पीपल ऑफ द कंट्री. ठीक है, लैंड एंड क्लाइमेट, पॉपुलेशन, हिस्ट्री एंड गवर्नमेंट, लैंग्वेज, इकोनॉमी, रिलीजन, एजुकेशन, हॉलीडेज और ठीक है, और ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, एटीट्यूड्स, हेल्थ. ठीक है, ये सब अलग अलग है. तो कंट्री के ये एस्पेक्ट्स हो सकते हैं और पीपल ऑफ द कंट्री, पीपल के ये एस्पेक्ट्स हो सकते हैं. ठीक है, उसके बाद लाइफ स्टाइल ऑफ द कंट्री, पोजीशन ऑफ द फैमिली और सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक लेवल्स, बिजनेस आवर्स, फूड, cultural customs, methods of greeting one another, non-verbal behavior. ठीक हो गया. What do you think of a culture in which people sign their last names first? What is your reaction when two signatures appear at the bottom of a business letter? Why don't people put the month first, then the date rather than day first, then the month? What is your impression of a foreign letter that is intentionally not concise? Some salutations are overly formal, so are endings. Is that a concern when your letters have been more casual? How do you react to long sentences in letters when you were taught to write shorter sentences? What's your reaction when a letter ends without a clear statement of purpose or action? What is your feeling toward a meeting in which there is little discussion and little comment until the senior and usually older person speaks and recommends an answer? How do you react when writing problems such as errors in choice of verb tense, prepositions and articles frequently occur in writing? Globalization means that for a company to survive, it must establish markets not only in its own country, but also in many foreign countries. Thus, employees must understand other culture as well as their own country's ethnic diversity. You are being introduced to three fundamental topics as a basis for communicating effectively with people from the other countries. Background to intercultural communication, national cultural variables, individual variables. ठीक है. Background to intercultural communication. Many personal and national variables affect both senders and receivers of messages to an understanding of the total communication process. It is important to have the concept of background, which means those aspects that can either impede or aid effective communication: language, culture, status, education, and age, etc. Each person and each country has its own written and unwritten rules of behavior, including instruction in communication. It is more comfortable to work with people of your own country, but international communication demands work with many foreign countries or people. ठीक होगा. So you have टॉपिक कंप्लीट हो गया, अगले टॉपिक में चलते हैं। दोबारा से ज्वाइन कर लेते हैं। वीडियो हो गई कंप्लीट, हम चलते हैं अपनी रीडिंग की तरफ। हम लोग यहाँ पे रीडिंग कर लेते हैं। हाँ जी, तो इंट्रोडक्शन है हमारे पास टॉपिक का टाइटल भी वही है, इंटर कल्चरल कम्युनिकेशन, ठीक है। ये इसका नेक्स्ट पार्ट है, तो रीडिंग कर लेते हैं। Introduction. The world today is characterized by an ever-growing number of contacts, resulting in communication between people with different linguistic and cultural background. This communication takes place because of contacts within the area of business, military cooperation, science, education, mass media, entertainment, tourism. But also because of immigration brought about by labor shortage और political conflicts, ठीक है। उसके बाद है in all these contacts there is communication which needs to be constructive as possible without misunderstanding and breakdowns. It is our belief that research on nature of linguistic and cultural similarities and differences here can play a positive and structural role. सही, आगे चलते हैं हम लोग। Concept of culture. Culture refers to the behavioral characteristic typical of a group. This definition implies that communication, oral and non-verbal within a group also is typical of that group and is unique. Ethnocentrism, judging over group or countries by the cultural standards of your group, ठीक है, by the cultural standards of your group, and the cultural generalizations applicable to an entire national are impossible. Knowing core characteristic of a country are basic to better international communication, ठीक है। चलते हैं आगे। An intercultural communication model. Studies have long determined that all of us are more comfortable with persons we know and who hold similar beliefs. Let's look at the figure. ठीक है। Major cultural overlap. Two countries might speak same languages, dress similarly, use common form of dress. Some cultural overlaps. ये है major और ये है some. सही हो गया। इसके आगे चलते हैं। An intercultural communication model. United States other cultures concerned with diversity, tendency to be obsessed with time, expect answers quickly to faxes, letters or email. Few vacation periods, legalistic letter, early starting time for work, less tolerance for diversity, time is flexible. Fax and email slowly increasing in developing countries. Many vacation days, about 17 in some countries. More informal, a handshake is as good as a letter, and start working later in the day. ठीक, आगे चलते हैं हम लोग। An intercultural communication model. United States and other cultures much use of slang, prefer deductive. It gets to the point more quickly, prefer paragraph headings and visual divisions. Rank is less important. Other cultures less use of slang, prefer inductive. Inductive, it is less arrogant, prefer plays a part. Before drawing conclusion from cultural data, it is necessary to consider many factors. A single cause rarely produces a valid conclusion. An intercultural communication model, national cultural variable, while communicating, the message sender and the receiver are both affected by external and internal stimuli. Communicating with business people in a foreign country, you must realize that overall national and individual cultural differences within the culture further affect this similar. ठीक है, सही है। तो चलते हैं आगे। मोर constraints and variable, सही है। Following are the global or macro constraints and variable that communicators must face when working with foreign receivers of their messages. Some are national variables, individual cultural variables: education, regulation, economics, politics, social norms, language, time, space, food, accepted dress or manners, or decision making. ठीक है। Education. Many managers in foreign countries are not very well educated. Most Asian and Chinese managers have had a less formal education than American and European managers. Education levels of Chinese, Asian and US managers. So देखते हैं आप। Less than high school 5.4, 2.5 or 0.1. High school graduate 31.8, 12.4, 3.2. Some college 34.5, 19.4 or 16.9. Undergraduate degree 27.6, 5.4, 79.8. Postgraduate degree 2.7 to 25 or 30. ठीक है, आगे चलते हैं। Education. Before drawing conclusion from date, it is necessary to consider many factors. Percent of managers recommending specific courses as very important preparation for general management. Course: oral communication, written communication, US 79.5 and 71.8% and 8.6%. Written communication 78 और 69 और 8. ओके, आगे चलते हैं हम लोग। Attitude towards education. What is the level of education of middle managers? To what degree is education of women supported in the country? Does education constitutes a significant proportion of the national budget? Law and regulation. In both the developed and developing nations, various government regulations affect business communications and the sale of products. For example, advertising directed at children is restricted in the United States, Canada and Scandinavia. Also other countries such as France, Mexico and province of Quebec have a restriction on the use of foreign languages in advertisement. ठीक है। In some Muslim countries, fashion magazines are not allowed in many countries and cosmetic makeup is also prohibited. ठीक है। Laws and regulation. Degree of formality. To what extent are the laws of the country codified? Is there uniform enforcement for the laws and regulations of the country? Are the laws and regulations of your country accepted and enforced? Economics, availability of capital and transportation, standard of living per capita vary from nation to nation. The opportunity to borrow money, the rate of inflation and the exchange rates influence business and a country's ability to communicate concerning that business. In the US free enterprise system, competitors usually set their own prices. In contrast, OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, as a cartel, some Japanese businesses check with the government before initiating major production and trading changes. ठीक है, आगे चलते हैं. हाँ जी, economics post history and projection, which economic changes have occurred within the past 5 years that will affect the future. Is the government supportive of the economic changes occurring? How welcome are outside investors in your host country? Politics, even concept of democracy will vary. Even concepts of democracy will vary as interrupted in Korea, in the Philippines or Great Britain. The sweeping political changes in government will affect future business relations. The events such as anti-government demonstrations, arrest, assassinations, elections, exile, general strikes, guerrilla warfare, government crisis, revolutions and riots are important in determining the stability of a country. Politics. Which political changes have occurred within the past 5 years? How supportive the government of outside investors, of joint ventures? What are the what are the protocols that conventions individuals must respect in the host country? Religion. Be careful of religious belief within foreign countries, although some basic beliefs overlap. There are some major differences in connection with religion. There is great need for tolerance. Buddhism, Hinduism, and Muslim religions are found in many parts of the world, affecting the values and attire of people professing these faiths. For instance, these religions forbid consumption of alcohol. ठीक है. Religious holidays affect international communication. Interrupting work schedules or delaying responses to request. Be aware that religion can affect the status of women, their positions within an economy, and even their buying patterns and habits of dress. Religion, homogeneity and diversity of belief structure. Are you aware of the major religious beliefs that could affect your business relationships? Will the religious holidays affect your rhythm of conducting business? What personal behavior is acceptable and not acceptable? ठीक है. Social norms in various ways. Any national environmental constraints, education, law and regulation, economics, politics, religion affect the nation's social norms. In many countries, a male line of the family profoundly influences some business decisions, buying patterns, pooling of resources, special interest affect behavior and business communication. Beyond the immediate family, a bond may exist between persons based on caste, class, age, or even special interest. Special interests. Be aware of a nation's social norms. Importance of family, influence of past colonial influences. Are you aware of the social hierarchies of the country? Is there rank order of importance for participant at meetings? Who will really make the business decision? Which country's influence is still evident after previous colonial control? ठीक है. Language, an important constraint that undergirds all the preceding variables in language. Obviously, unless both sender and the receiver understand a common language, the opportunities for successful business communications are significantly limited. Language, English is a world language and to a major extent the language of business. Language problems are often core to communication understanding. Language use of English and other languages used in business relationships. Is it necessary to have an interpreter है, और सही है हमारा लास्ट है इसमें. What individual cultural variables he or she exhibits a unique lifestyle of personal habits and ethnic diversity. Thus, within each culture, on the micro and more personal level, are differences in verbal and non-verbal cues expressed through varying concepts of time, individual speech, food, acceptable dress, managers at home and at work, decision making patterns and other non-verbal variations. ठीक है. Time chronemics. Persons in Latin America and the Middle East treat time more casually than do Americans. Prefer promptness. Germans are time precise. In Latin America and in Buddhist cultures, you may wait an hour, just reflecting a different concept of time. Arriving late is a social accepted custom. Okay. Individual cultural variables, even when referring to seasons of a year, countries differ. It should not take you long to recognize which is the time conscious culture and which is the one less concerned with precision in time. Knowing cultural perceptions of time helps you understand why some responses are slow by your standards. Perception of time is the concept of time considered linear or circular. What impact will time have upon business decisions? Is time considered valuable or an intangible asset? Individual cultural variables. Culture, let's get on with it. Culture 1 and culture 2. Let's get on with it. Manana tomorrow. Time saving devices, efficient devices. In how many minutes can you get here? What will be. Let's set a phone appointment for 8:15. The will give you a call. The future is now. The old ways is a good way. And live for today. Tradition should be honored. 8:15. You're late. Dinner at 8. Tradition should be honored. Sometime tomorrow. Oh, didn't know I was. See you when we get there. Individual cultural variables. Space, proxemics. How close many strangers stand to you. How do you reach in Saudi Arabia when someone's breath intentionally brushes you in conversation? How do you like being literally pushed into a train in Tokyo? How would you react hanging onto the outside of a bus in Pakistan? How do you react to the cold stare of a German at your eyes invade the privacy of his or her yard? Some cultures consider those who stand close to you as intrusive, rude, pushy, overbearing. Concepts of office space differ. ठीक है. Perception of a space. What is the average acceptable personal space between natives of the host country? ठीक हो गया. तो ये इस टॉपिक की हमारी रीडिंग कंप्लीट हो गई है. हम चलते हैं अपने अगले टॉपिक पर. अगला टॉपिक है, हमारा सेशन एक्सपायर हो गया है, इसको अगेन ज्वाइन कर लेते हैं. और लास्ट टॉपिक है ये हमारे क्विज का. ठीक है. कल्चरल वेरिएबल्स, ठीक है। चल
Sorry. Fifth main culture, that's cultural communication. We define culture, that refers to behavior characteristic typical of a group. Then we study background culture. need to know the specific purpose of your letter. So you need to know that is your purpose realistic? This is very important. Sometimes it happens that you want something that is not possible because of certain reason. Suppose the collection stage, you need to give some time to your reader, and there is still some there is second stage in between the first and the third. But instead of the second stage, you write a letter of third stage. So this is not a realistic approach. Before you write letters, your message, look whether they are realistic, whether they are demanding something not possible by the reader. You have gone into contract and there is some date, some time in completion of your contract, and you want some immediate results. First, look for the realistic purpose of your message. Second thing in this regard is it the right time? Maybe you want to write some message to some firm and they are in the process of shipping, and that's not the right time. Sometimes it happens that you feel that you are not the right person to send a message. Maybe if you send a message signed by or message written by your boss, this is a better message. As we in correct we normally do that. The final letter should be signed or written by some higher authority. So this point is important in knowing the specific purpose. So another thing that is important is your purpose acceptable to your organization. Sometimes you are in some hurry and you want some results. But look that your message is acceptable to the goals or overall goals of the organization. Or not. Knowing these specific purposes is very important. Whenever you have to write a letter, go through these points. See that what's your valid purpose, is it to inform, is it to persuade, is it to collaborate with some leader or some listener, and is there goodwill being created by the letter? And then go for your specific purpose. What's the specific purpose? And is it a realistic one? Is it the time appropriate? Is it acceptable to the overall objective of the organization? So planning messages, preparing for effective messages, the first most important thing is to know the purpose of your message or to define the purpose of your message. Second thing in this regard is your audience. Audience is the receiver of your message or the listener of your message. Your audience can be your own colleagues, your audience can be your customers, your audience can be public, your audience can be stakeholders, and your audience can be the government. And so you have to take care of this as well. Because knowing your audience is very important. Obviously, you must have some purpose. Unless there is a purpose, you will not write anything. But after having a purpose, the next important thing is knowing your audience. Who's going to be your audience? You need to know a lot. Who are they? Your own colleague, management, seniors, or juniors, or superiors, or subordinates. What are their viewpoints? What is their qualification? What is their academic organizational position? How do they react to the messages, the type of messages you are writing? So you need to know a lot. You need to make a profile of your audience. Now that a lot of time we fail to achieve our results. You are looking at limitation before you are quality. And the failure is just because our inability to understand our audience. It's not matter, it's not purpose, it's just the audience. Coming to the level of the audience. That's the only important thing in getting our desired result. If we are able to come down to the level of our audience, how are they going to react to our messages? These things will help us in tailoring our messages to our readers' needs, to our readers' expectations, to our audience needs, to our audience expectations. So be very careful when you are coming to this one, that who is going to be your audience. Similar, simple, if you are an engineer and you are talking to or you are writing to people who are out of your field, I'm not going to use the jargon of your field. Similarly, you are a doctor. You are talking to your professors, colleagues. You are using terminology of your jargon of your field. But if you are talking to the public, to the patient, you are using little jargon of your field. No terminology of your field. So knowing the audience is very important. So follow this guideline. Ask yourself some key questions about your audience. Who are they? Who are your audience? Inside your organization, attractive business messages. And to prepare attractive business messages, we need to follow certain guidelines. The first thing is to be well aware of the purpose of our message, and the second thing is to know the audience who are going to be our audience. There are three other points that we will discuss in the next lecture. I hope that from today's discussion you must have understood that how you can effectively prepare your business messages, because our ultimate objective is to be able to prepare business messages both written and oral. So with this, I would like to finish today's lecture and say you Allah Hafiz. Thank you.
सो फ्रेंड, हमारी वीडियो अभी कंप्लीट हो, हम चलेंगे अपने रेटिंग की तरफ। Introduction. Cultural differences manifest themselves in different ways and differing levels of depth. Symbols represent the most superficial and values the deepest manifestations of culture, with heroes and rituals in between. Symbols are words, gestures, pictures, or objects that carry a particular meaning which is only recognized by those who share a particular culture. New symbols easily develop, old ones disappear. Symbols from one particular group are regularly copied by others. This is why symbols represent the outermost layer of a culture. Heroes are persons, past or present, real or fictitious, who possess characteristics that are highly prized in a culture. They also serve as models for behavior. Individual culture variables are those which are specific to a person living at a specific place, and these differences vary from country to country. Let's move on. Individual cultural variables. Food. It may be a good idea prior to visiting your host country to visit various ethnic restaurants in your home country. Then you will have an initial idea as to the kinds of foods available, how they are served, fixed or eaten. Perceptions of food. Are you aware of eating habits of your host? Are there table conventions you should be aware of? Are there foods you might find disagreeable? Individual cultural variables. Acceptable dress. It is better to ask about the mode of dress for an occasion in your host country than to risk making an embarrassing mistake. At most American men wear the business suit, whereas women wear dressed or tailored suits. Some British people might still wear the bowler along with a dark suit and carry an umbrella. In Middle East, long cotton coats are acceptable. Perception of dress. How much skin may be exposed in both an informal and informal situation? Are certain colors disturbing? Will Western attire be accepted? इंडिविजुअल कल्चरल वेरिएबल्स में ही है मैनर्स. नोइंग मैनर इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. चिल्ड्रन टेक शेक योर हैंड इन जर्मनी, hug you in Italy, and often stay in the background in Pakistan or India. In fact, the ritual of the greeting and the farewell is more formal in many countries. With children and adults, you avoid gifts or red roses in Germany or white chrysanthemums in France, Belgium, and Japan. Be prepared to sit close together in Asia. In Saudi Arabia, sons differ to their fathers. At the heart of their system is the family. Perceptions of manners. What is the protocol regarding the introduction of person in a business situation? What are the rules of gift giving? ठीक है. उसके बाद है इंडिविजुअल कल्चरल वेरिएबल्स. डिसीजन मेकिंग. Patience above all is needed in intercultural communication. In doing business with other countries, Americans are typecast as moving too quickly in asking for decision. Give more thought to inductive communication. Americans are accused of being brisk, curt, infantile. We wish to get to the point fast. Getting down to business is a trial of the Western culture. The Germans, Singaporeans, Swiss, Dutch, and Scandinavians are similar. Quickly getting to the issue. Chinese, Pakistani, French, and British prefer more pleasuring social amenities. And in Japan, decision time is held back as group consensus moves towards a decision. Individual cultural variables में ही है ringy process. Stamps of approval by many people on a proposal. Your understanding of the decision process add to your success in dealing with a foreign environment. Perceptions of decision making is the pattern for making decisions is consistent from one country to another. Is placement of the major decision maker consistent in meeting situations? Is an inductive or deductive pattern of a decision making preferred? Next चलते हैं. Verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal. A kind of verbal pairing occurs when strangers meet each seeking to determine which topics are acceptable and uncontroversial. The tone of voice of one's initial words can influence your initial perception of whether the meeting is positive or negative. See you later can mean the same day to Asian workers or some indefinite time in the future to Americans. Revs are loud and some Japanese use little volume. Cantons demand more volume to suggest changes in word meaning. Verbal and non-verbal communication. Accept cultural differences. Studying your own culture. Learn about other cultures through books, articles, videos, or other sources. Encourages employees to discuss their culture's customs. Avoid being judgmental. Create a formal forum to teach employees about the customer of all cultures represented in the firm. Readers forum. Train employees to see and overcome ethnocentric stereotyping. सही है. Verbal and non-verbal communication. Improve oral and written communications. Define the terms people need to know in the job. Emphasize major points with repetition and reap. Use familiar words whenever possible. Be concise. Don't cover too much information at one time. Adjust your message to employees. Educate communication level. Be specific and explicit using descriptive words, exact measurements and examples when possible. Give the reason for asking employee to follow a certain procedure and explain what will happen if the procedure is not followed. Use written summaries and visual aids when appropriate to clarify your points. Demonstrate and encourage the right way to complete a task. Use a tool and so on. Reduce language barriers. Train managers in the language of their employees. Train employees in the language of most customers and of most people in the company. Ask bilingual employees to serve as translators. Print up important health and safety instructions in as many languages as necessary. Access how well you have been understood. Research the non-verbal reactions of other cultures, then be alert to facial expressions and other non-verbal signs that indicate confusion or embarrassment. Probe for comprehension. Encourage employees to ask questions in private and in writing. Observe how employees use the information you have provided and review any misunderstood points. They offer feedback to improve communication. Focus on the positive by explaining that should be done rather than what shouldn't be done. Discuss a person's behavior and the situation rather than making a judgment about the person. Be supportive as you offer feedback and reassure individuals that their skills and contribution are important. A kind of verbal sparring occurs when we judge people to a great extent by their voice. Some native language demand many tonal variation, giving impression to a non-native of loudness, even arrogance. Non-verbal myriad of non-verbal symbols exist for every culture, even in subcultures. Knowing the major desirable and undesirable cues helps knowing both intended and unintended communication errors. Oral teams reports on countries variables that may affect business and communication. Appoint several teams within the class. Each time is responsible for selecting a single country and then orally reporting the class. Some of the countries national environment variables that may affect business and communication. आगे चलते हैं हम. Process of preparing a effective business message. While preparing a written or an oral business message, you need to plan, organize, compose, edit, and revise it. The message must also be proofread and corrected before it is mailed. Apart from the steps mentioned above, the writer must take care of 7C qualities and also of legal aspect. Careful preparation of communication is important even if the writer or speaker has the modern technology. The basic planning steps are as follows. 5 planning steps. Before writing a message, the following steps are necessary for effective communication. Okay. Define the purpose of the message. Analyze your audience, readers or listeners. Choose the ideas to include. Collect all the facts to break up these ideas. Outline, organize your message. Define the purpose of the message. General purpose: to inform, persuade, to collaborate with your audience. This deters the amount of audience participation and amount of control you have over your message. To inform, your control is high. Your control is high. You inform. You need with interaction. Audience also absorb or reject the information. To persuade, you require a moderate amount of participation, moderate amount of control. To collaborate with the audience, you need maximum participation or your control is minimal. specific purpose. That purpose you be clear and straightforward to achieve this. Are yourself what you want to achieve, or ask yourself what you want to achieve or accomplish with your message, and what your audience should think after receiving the message. Is your purpose realistic? Is this the right time? Is the right person delivering the message? Is your purpose acceptable to your organization? Analyze your audience or readers or listeners. Okay. It is very important to write the message to the recipient's views and needs. You might or might not have met the recipient. It is better to visualize the individual. Try to picture that person, business or professional person, or laborers, superior, boss, colleagues, or subordinate, man or woman, new or long time customer, young, middle-aged, or early client. Also consider the person's educational level, attitudes, and so on. If the message is for many people, try to find some common characteristics in all communications. The areas must be considered on which the recipient is likely to be well informed or uniform or uninformed, pleased, displeased, positive, negative, or neutral, interested or uninterested, and unreceptive. Ask yourself some key questions about your audience. Who are they? What is their probable reaction to your message? How much do they already know about the subject? What is their relationship to you? Audience profile. Who is your primary audience? How big is your audience? What is your audience's composition? What is your audience's level of understanding? What is your audience's probable reaction? डन हो गया ना, अभी और हमारा टॉपिक भी हो गया कंप्लीट. यहाँ तक हमारा क्विज का सिलेबस हो गया है कंप्लीट. क्विज नंबर 2 का सिलेबस 11 से लेकर 14 चैप्टर्स तक. ठीक है, उससे आगे हम क्विज की तैयारी करेंगे, जिसमें हम बस क्विज की तैयारी के 2 स्टेप होते हैं. एक में रीडिंग करेंगे और दूसरी में एमसीक्यूज करेंगे.